Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bleav in Bengal podcast presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Solomon Wilcots, and we're joined by our Cincinnati Bengals insider, Charlie Goldsmith. And Charlie, look, this Week 9 contest between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Chicago Bears took on epic proportions. Not only do the Cincinnati Bengals become one of the first teams to score 80 points over a two-game stretch and lose both games. I mean, this is the first time this happened since 1966 when the New York Giants did it. The numbers here are mind-boggling in terms of how the offense is producing and how the defense is not measuring up. We always talk about complementary football, but yet it does not come together for yet another week for the Cincinnati Bengals, who, oh, by the way, since the start of last year, this is now the sixth game where the Bengals have scored 30 or more points, but still was not able to come away a winner. Your thoughts after this game of such epic production on the offensive side and such failings on the defensive side?
It's similar themes to what we've been talking about. You've got missed tackles, you've got communication, you've got a pass rush that's not being productive, that's not making plays. You have lapses in the secondary. You put all that together, and the end result is a defense that's historically, one of the worst that we've seen. It's a young group that's not taking the next step in its development, and that leads to a lot of frustration with where the Bengals are at.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going to say that Al Golden's not a good defensive coach. This, to me, defies logic because we saw this team underperform on defense last year with a good coach that we all know, Lou Anarumo, to be a good coach. He was fired. Now his defense is playing well in Indianapolis. And I think we now know that some of the fault and some of the blame should really be looked at the personnel. And I think even now under Al Golden, does that become even a little bit more clear? How much of the talk is about scheme as opposed to, because they say that, look, critical moments in games, you think players over plays, right? You think the individuals over the scheme. That's what we always talk about. Rely on the players over schematics. And now that when it's not going well, why should we look at the play caller, the scheme, when not looking at the players?
Yeah, ultimately, you can have the best scheme on the planet. You can have the best, not that the Bengals have this, the best drafting approach on the planet. You can make the smartest trades. You can do a million things. But at the end of the day, what football is one guy in front of another, and you got to tackle him. You got to make the play. Or you're pass rushing, and you've just got to separate. You've got to find the quarterback and finish at any position. You've got to finish. And this is a Bengals team that's not finishing consistently. And Al Golden's been simplifying the scheme. He's been building his whole approach in practice and during the week and everything around the idea that this is a young, inexperienced defense. But they're still not executing in the simple fundamental spots they need to. And you're seeing similar themes over and over.
Okay, I'm going to give you some of the numbers from the Cincinnati Bengals. 47-42 loss at the hands of the Chicago Bears. By the way, Caleb Williams had not thrown a touchdown pass in each of his last two games until he showed up at Paycor Stadium. This seems to be the stadium now where quarterbacks who had been anemic, Justin Fields, right, now Caleb Williams, seem to come and get right against the Cincinnati Bengals defense. But here are some of the ways just to kind of describe how the defense has been struggling. The Bengals defense has now allowed 27 or more points in each of their last 8 games this season. The defense has allowed opponents a red zone percentage of 70%. That means on 70% of the opponent's red zone possessions, once they get inside the 20-yard line, they're scoring touchdowns 7 out of 10 trips inside the red zone, ranked 30th in the NFL. The Bears, by the way, was 4 or 5 down inside the red zone on Sunday at Paycor Stadium. And the Bengals defense has allowed 500 or more yards in each of their last 2 games against the Jets and the Chicago Bears. The last time they did that over the stretch of 2 consecutive weeks was during the 2018 season. Again, this team now, they become the second team in NFL history to score 80 or more points and lose both games. So I got to tell you, when Chase Brown spoke to the press after the game. A lot of people were saying that he was pointing the fingers at the defense. I don't know that I heard him call anybody out. I don't know that he pointed a finger at a player. Or here's what I heard. We got to win the game. We got to close out the game. He was frustrated because this stuff is happening week after week after week. I guess we would rather him say nothing, but for whatever reason, the media is now pointing to his comments as a potential schism or a breaking point potentially for the locker room. I don't see it that way, Charlie. How do you take what you heard from Chase Brown following the game and the very disappointing loss where we're seeing now historic numbers defensively when it comes to not upholding what the offense is able to do on their side of the ball?
Well, it's the defense's fault, and the defense didn't finish the game, and it's a defense that hasn't been able to make a big play in the big spot all season, aside from a interception that got tipped in their direction against the Browns all the way back in week 1, a play that was so long ago that Joe Flacco threw that interception. It's hard to say you're pointing fingers when one unit is so clearly pulling its weight and one unit is regressing as the season goes along. And what the defense needs more of is more kind of fire on that side, more guys taking ownership like Chase Brown, who truly is one of the best young leaders on this team. What the defense needs is more guys like that kind of taking that approach. And, that's something they're clearly missing right now.
Yeah, look, it could go from bad to worse. I've seen teams fracture and splinter when you start to point finger. Because like in the NFL, there's this rule of thumb that everybody is going to have a bad day at the office. Like if you go through an NFL season, it's rare to be an NFL player and not experience some highs and lows. For instance, they have the game one. Running back in the running game, they're supposed to run out the clock. What happens when a running back fumble at the end of a game? And now, you got to walk into that same locker room and look at defensive players telling you, dude, hold on to the ball. All you got to do is hold on to the ball and we win the game. You see how the tables can turn on you rather quickly. And that's why we advocate, don't point fingers at the other side. Today is their day. Tomorrow could be your day. And to that, you say what, Charlie?
This was a team that was hamstrung by its offensive line more than anything kind of between weeks 3 and week 5, week 6, throwing its quarterback as well when Jake Browning was under center. So the offense has had its moment in the crosshairs as well. But kind of the issue is the run game has really made strides, and the offense has figured things out. They made the trade for Flacco that turned things around offensively. There's not that lane on defense from a personnel change perspective, from a scheme change perspective, to make that sort of 180-degree turnaround like the offense did. They found that lane. They did something very difficult offensively, but defensively, that path just might not exist. From a depth perspective, it's not like there are guys who, more young guys who they could be giving more snaps to. We've talked about the scheme. The old guys are hurt or having down years, are underperforming clearly. It's a long way out of this hole that this defense is in.
This is the Bleav in Bengals podcast presented by FanDuel. This segment is brought to you by Heroes.com. It is a lifestyle brand that really does promote us all being heroes in our community. So just go to Heroes.com to order your Bleav in Bengals tumbler. You want to keep your drinks cool in the summer and warm in the winter, go to Heroes.com to order your tumbler today. You can get one in Bengals colors as well. Charlie, listen to this. Cincinnati Bengals currently are allowing 426 yards per game this season. It's the second worst of any defense in the Super Bowl era. We're talking 50-plus years we haven't seen defense gives up these kind of plays, explosive plays, productive plays, scoring points to the opposing opponent. We haven't seen this in maybe the last 50 or so years. They're the only team in the NFL to score 38-plus points in back-to-back games and lose both games since 19 70. At what point do you think Zack Taylor, who's, he's the head coach, he's the play caller on offense, he's putting this team in position to win? He really is. I think he's a phenomenal play caller. I think he's getting a lot out of Joe Flacco. We've seen the run game improve. We've seen all facets on that side of the ball improve. And this is offensive production over the last 2 years. It'd be hard to argue that there's been a better offense in the NFL since the start of the 2024 season. And this is even without Joe Burrow under center. How frustrating must this be if you're Zack Taylor and you're dialing up these plays on offense, but yet still you're leaving the ballpark a loser on Sunday?
Yeah, excuse me. Ultimately, he has to be a part of the solution defensively as well. There were a couple moments on Sunday where, from a game management perspective, it could have been a tick better. I think of the miscommunication, not that I put that on Zack, but the miscommunication in what looked like getting in the play call in. You have a new quarterback. You have a lot of moving pieces on third down that resulted in the intentional grounding. Then fourth down, bringing the field goal unit on late. And then they missed the field goal. Like when the margins are this thin, you have to be nailing every single one of those situations. And that was probably one that stuck with Zack coming out of the game on Sunday. Obviously, his role with the defense probably is sticking with him. His role working to develop and empower some of the guys who he wants to be young leaders on that defense is a part of this process that has to speed up along. So, when you're the head coach of the whole football team, all of this is intertwined, even if, you're scoring 40 points a game.
Joe Flacco and his 4 starts now, the Cincinnati Bengals are 1-3 in those 4 games. 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 1 came on a Hail Mary, right? At the end of Sunday's game. But the Bengals offense is averaging 32 points per game with him inserted into the starting lineup. He's now the oldest player in NFL history to throw for 470 plus yards, right? That goes to show you no other team has ever gotten this kind of production with a quarterback who's 40 years of age. Now, you can look at Tom Brady. He was playing and winning at 40. He didn't have this kind of game, Charlie. That should be duly noted, because many of us kind of snickered and laughed when they made the trade for Joe Flacco. I do think at some point the Cincinnati Bengals ought to be given credit for the fact that the front office anyway, did not quit when Jake Browning wasn't quite measuring up. They felt like something had to be done. And when they made a move, it was a move that most of the league looked at and snickered and laughed. And I'm not saying that the Bengals have the last laugh here, because clearly it's not equating to wins, but that was a really good move because it's made the entire offense better. The offensive line's better. The run game's better. Chase Brown looks better. Andre Yoshivas is now starting to play. So just kind of talk about that. This move was a critical one. We would love to see it equate to more wins, but everything else is pointing in a positive direction as a result of his arrival.
And he had a sprained shoulder this week, and he struggled lifting his arm, kind of above his head. And he missed 2 practices, and he still probably doesn't know every single name. He still probably just knows a fraction of the offense. There are all these hurdles that he's never experienced before, that these coaches have never experienced before. And yet, despite all that, Flacco, a guy who hasn't been a full-time starter since like 2018 or 2019, of course, he came in relief for Cleveland in 2023. This guy who, let me put it this way, no one has signed at the start of their season to be their franchise or to be their starting quarterback since 2019. This guy's playing like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, just in terms of what he's doing. There's a high degree of difficulty in the plays he's making. He's overcoming the limitations in his game. He's setting an incredible tone. He's just a natural leader with the way he carries himself. He's inspired a lot of people in the building. It's really one of the best stories in football, one that everyone would be talking about had the defense made a play in each of these last 2 games. This offense is humming even better than they could have dreamed. And Flacco is showing that he could keep playing in this league for a few more years, despite his mobility. You can't say it was really a movie moment, what Flacco did yesterday until the defense surrendered late.
How about Charlie Jones starting the game by returning the opening kickoff for a touchdown, something he did I think you got to go back to week 7 last year against the Cleveland Browns, where he returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, 100 yards. And this was it almost like it was a good sign. We were feeling good for most of the day until this game just got away. I mean, they could not get the stops. What do you think is being discussed in their meeting room this morning in terms of how to improve? I look at it as poor tackling. I do understand the simplification of the defense, because if you can't carry out, schemes, and you and I both know, you get overly simple in this league, it's equivalent to doing nothing, right? It's equivalent to doing nothing against some of these NFL offenses. And I guess my most critical thing is that we allowed 500 yards total offense, not to the Indianapolis Colts or the Detroit Lions or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills. This was the Jets. This was the Chicago Bears, who were still trying to figure it out. Caleb Williams hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in each of his last 2 games. He shows up to Paycor Stadium. He throws for 3 touchdown passes, including a game-winning 58-yarder to Colston Loveland, a rookie tight end who hadn't had a touchdown until week 9 against the Bengals defense. Right now it's shaping up that this is the defense that all the other teams, even the bad ones, are having good days against.
And it starts when you can't do some, fundamental things like tackling, like rushing the passer. It opens up opportunities and windows for, players to build confidence, for inexperienced players to build confidence and start feeling like they have momentum heading into the 3rd and 4th quarter. That happened in each of these last 2 games against the Jets and Bears. You saw, each respective offense build up confidence as the game went along and get better as the game got along. And that's because the Bengals defense kind of opened the door for that. So there's an intangible factor that the Bengals defense is allowing as they keep allowing these explosive plays and keeps allowing these rushing lanes and keeps allowing quarterbacks to be comfortable in the pocket. And then, you can have DJ Turner breaking up a pass, and that's great. But then there's nothing really else that they can count on this unit.
All right, Charlie, let's look ahead to the upcoming week as the Cincinnati Bengals head into their bye week. And of course, this look ahead segment is brought to you by Anjanette France of Sipsey Klein Realty. Of course, she is the person to go to for all of your real estate needs. All you got to do is just use the promo code at the bottom of your screen. If you have any real estate needs in the tri-state area, you want to look up this lovely lady, Anjanette France of Sipsey Klein Realty. She is the playmaker who makes all the plays for your real estate needs. As we look ahead, there is a bye week. Maybe we get to all exhale just a little bit. And at the time of this recording, Charlie, we're just a few hours, right? Maybe a few hours shy, a little more than 24 hours away from the trade deadline. Cincinnati Bengals now have fallen to 3-6. Not saying they're going to wave the white flag of surrender, but I look at teams who have made a push for the Super Bowl. I remember the Rams in 2021 before the trade deadline. They made a move for Odell Beckham Jr. They made a move for Jalen Ramsey and added other players around their quarterback, Matthew Stafford. We see now the Philadelphia Eagles, just within the last week as we get close to the trade deadline, they made a move for 3 different players and just traded for Jalen Phillips to bring him over from Miami to add another pass rusher. I got to believe their phone is ringing about Trey Hendrickson. You can't tell me teams aren't calling about Trey Hendrickson. What do you know? What do you have on that? And how likely are the Bengals to make a move either in buying or selling as we get close to the trade deadline?
As Zack said yesterday, kind of this is the team, and this is his expectation, what the team is going forward. And that's how the Bengals have always operated. And that's been status quo, which it sounds like they're going to follow again in 2025, as opposed to either punting on a season. That's just something they've never done, or going all in on a season that doesn't seem like it's worthy of being going all in on. So I believe in what Zack said yesterday, that they're planning on this being the team and these being the guys they have going forward. And that's just the Bengals, again, kind of going with what they have. And another example of them kind of continuing strategies they've followed over the years, even though those strategies haven't led to consistent deep playoff runs.
Of course not. I mean, look, I don't want to be overly critical here. I just Bleav you keep doing the same things that you've always done, you keep getting the same results. Because what I'm speaking about is how to put Vince Lombardi trophies in a very empty trophy case. Okay. And how do you change that? If you keep doing, say, this is what we do, this is how we do it. I call that playing within the margins, the playing within the margins of safety. We don't want to appear to be selling off assets. We're just going to go into the 2026 draft with whatever draft picks come our way. We're not going to leverage a way to go ahead and do that. Let me share something with you. The Howie Roseman, who's the general manager of the Philadelphia Eagles, they are the defending Super Bowl champions. They just traded for 3 players within the last week. They're not playing it safe. They're not trying to just do what we're doing to get what we got. They traded for Jalen Phillips, who, oh, by the way, they used a 3rd round pick. Okay. That was their 3rd round pick. They got another 3rd round pick in a trade with a team with the Jets, by the way. They kept the Jets' 3rd round pick because they know with the Jets record, it's going to be higher than what their 3rd round pick will be next year. That's why they gave the Dolphins their 3rd round pick of next year's draft to the Dolphins. But guess what? If they allow Jalen Phillips to walk at the end of this year, they get a compensatory pick. They just got to, in other words, they gave up nothing. They're going to get that pick back as a compensatory pick to get Jalen Phillips this year. We're talking about a guy who's playing chess, not checkers, and how to improve his team. And what I'm saying is he did it in a way, Charlie, where he gave up nothing to make his team better now. Why can't we do that? Why can't we be very aggressive and smart? It looked like you gave up picks. You're making moves, but at the net is you gave up nothing to improve your team today. Or you give up something to improve your team going into next year's draft. But to sit here and do nothing, nothing drives me more bonkers than hearing that.
Yeah, you asked why can't they do it? There's no reason why they can't. They feel or they've expressed discomfort over the years when they've been operating at a negative from a draft capital perspective, which they are at right now after swapping a 5th for a 6th in the Joe Flacco trade. So probably what they'd tell you is that impacts their ability to be flexible because they're already operating at a negative.
Whoa.
But there's no
they
like
can get that pick back. They can get those.
Sure.
It's Trey Hendrickson. If you're not going to use him the rest of the year, look, allow him to go and benefit. And you're going to get compensation. You're going to get not only that pick back, you're going to get even better picks back. This falls on deaf ears with me. And look, I'm hearing now, Shamar Stewart, you rather win arguments than win games. This to me is don't think about the argument you had with Trey Hendrickson this offseason. This is now time to say, hey, look, it's not benefiting us right now to have him on the team. He's been a great player for us. At the end of the season, looks like he's going to walk anyway. We're not winning games with him. Maybe we can set ourselves up. Because right now, if it's not benefiting us, let's at least leverage what we have to set ourselves up to be better at this time next year by potentially moving the asset. That, to me, is smart business.
Yeah, I mean, it's what the majority of teams do. Buyers and sellers are a 100-year-old concept.
That's exactly
where we got teams that are sellers who aren't in it. Right. But I got no explanation for it. It's just how they've been and what they've done, and it's a boring answer. It's probably a frustrating answer if you disagree with it. And again, I'll say it again: like sellers have been a concept for 100 years. Like few things have been a concept in all of sports for 100 years, but that's one of them. But the Bengals have literally never sold.
I'm just going to tell you now. Maybe I should take my copy of Adam Smith, A Wealth of Nations, that was written some 300 years ago. It talks about markets and economy. Maybe I should take my book down to Paycor Stadium and kind of share a few things about, okay, here's how we leverage the tools that we have to get the tools that we don't have. Here's how we sell what we got to get the things that we want but don't have. It's a fair concept. I got to believe, though, Mike and Katie, being Dartmouth graduates, have at least turned a few pages of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. I got to believe it.
I haven't. I mean, I'm not saying my education was at that level, but I have not read any of that myself.
Oh, I'm telling you, Charlie, because you cover this thing called sports, but sports is a big time business of buyers and sellers. You got to read it. In fact, I'm going to encourage all Bengals fans to read it. Turn the page of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. He also wrote a book called Market and Economies, right? Markets and Morality. That's the name of it. That way you know how to deal with morality. Morality does play a role in capitalism, okay? So I'm just telling you, you ought to read it.
It's getting pretty deep.
It'll make you a better person. We drill deep over here, Charlie. That's what we do. We don't just skim across the surface. You know how we do it, Charlie. We got to have substance to what we do in life. Hey, look, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be on a bye week. That means we get to rest our emotions a little bit. We get a reprieve, and then we get to come back week 11 when the Cincinnati Bengals who are they taking on? The Pittsburgh Steelers on the other side of the bye week. How about that? On the road. You saw what the Steelers did to the Indianapolis Colts, so we better be ready to bring it. He's always bringing it. He is Charlie Goldsmith. We want to thank you for joining us on the show. We want to thank everyone for joining us on this Cincinnati Bengals Bleav in Bengals edition right here, where it's fueled by FanDuel. Thank you for joining us, everyone.